welcome to another edition of Ljubljana Talks. Today we are at the IMEX trade show here in Frankfurt, and the amazing talk that is ahead of us, I know, is going to be with Claus Raasted from the College of Extraordinary Events and with Gorazd from Toleranza Marketing. Extraordinary experiences, sorry. Our conversation from just a second ago just kind of took me off into a different direction because I have a question.
Yes.
If Batman came as an exhibitor to IMEX, how would he organize his trade show setup?
If Batman came, like the real Batman, not me,
The real Batman,
but the real Batman came as an exhibitor, one, he would be Bruce Wayne, so he'd have a lot of money.
Okay, perhaps.
And one of the nice things about if you have a lot of money, you can do things the other people can't just by throwing money at it. Whether you buy 10 elephants and bribe the authorities to let them in, or you build a huge tower, just buy half of the space. The tricky thing is, if you don't have all the money, if you're not Bruce Wayne, then it's stupid trying to compete on money. And when I see here at IMEX, I see all these beautiful stands that think they're Batman. They think they have all the money, so they're competing on money, and they're losing. Where the only ones that can compete in that game are the ones at the very top, and the rest of us need to innovate, like you guys are doing.
Thank you. So if he was basically just a guy in a leather suit acting to be a bat and had no money, how would that look like?
Now we're talking, right? If he was just a guy, that's much closer to me. I left my leather suit at home. It fits me, but it doesn't fit anything else. Now, if that was the case, then he would say, okay, I'm the only guy here in a leather bat suit. So how do I play on that? And if he went out saying, I'm going to sell you hotel rooms, or I'm going to sell you travel SAS packages, that wouldn't work. So you need to play to your strengths. So if you are the leather-clad Batman guy, what are you selling? You're selling experience. And if you go around and you have a sign or a booth or anything, and you tell people, I help people create authentic, powerful experiences for middle-aged men, then you'll have somebody going, I want to talk with that guy. He's believable. But if you're going around saying, I'm Batman in a leather suit, you're thinking, what the hell is going on? I will sell you hotel rooms at 10% discount in Hamburg. They're like, why do you need the bat suit? This is just weird, right? So one of the first things to be aware of, whatever you're selling, this goes for IMEX as well, is don't start with thinking about what you're selling or what you're doing. Think about, what are you believable as? When people look at me, you can look at me. If I come and say, hi, I'm Claus. I know quite a lot about economic management. Let me tell you how to run your money. Most people are going to say, yeah, but do you really? Do you? Where if I say, hi, I'm Claus. I know quite a bit about innovation and creativity. Nobody doubts me. They're like, yeah, I'm sure you do. They don't know anything, right? I might be an expert on financial matters, but I'm not believable as that. Where when it comes to creativity, out of the box thinking, a little bit of craziness, they look at me once and they go, yeah, he probably knows how to do that. Think of what you're believable as, and then think about what you actually do.
I'm thinking, listening to you, Claus, your background, philosophy and history, how did you came to this experience in creative industry then? You should be a teacher, actually, at the faculty. Can you comment this? Who is Claus, actually,
so
in real life?
Many years ago, when I was at high school, I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do as a career? And I thought, I want to be a high school teacher. I want to teach philosophy and history, inspired by my own history and philosophy teacher. And I went directly into the university at age 19, studied philosophy. And then after a year, I left that because I wasn't really ready. And then after a year of working, I thought, I am ready. So I reapplied. And then I got a nice letter, and this says a lot about me as a person. I got a letter, and it says, I'll never forget, it said, Dear Claus, you have applied to study philosophy. We have rejected your application. And I thought, okay, then what am I doing now? And then a few lines later, it said, you are already inscribed here. Because I never quit, I just stopped going. So I didn't officially sign out. And a couple of years later, I did, because I found out that while the university was fun, I wanted to do something practical. And I thought I still wanted to teach, but I didn't want to teach through that established route. So goodbye, dream of high school teaching. And then I needed to learn how to do something.
I was right.
You were right.
Your dream.
It was my dream. And luckily, I now am at the space where I get to teach at universities, even though I don't have a degree. I recently became a business school instructor at the Vilnius University. Very nice title, just got on my LinkedIn. Thank you, Christian, for that. But I still haven't done a university degree, but I'm now experienced enough I get to be invited anyway.
How
It's
did you
really
came
nice.
across the idea to establish College of Extraordinary Experiences? Tell us more about that. This is an absolutely interesting story, I believe so. Okay.
So it's hard sitting between you guys because I want to speak and I want to speak to them. So
You can speak to them, we'll listen.
it gets slightly schizophrenic here, but I think that's good.
That's our spiel, you know.
That's the spiel, right? So for many years, I'm on my second career now, working with innovation and experience design. But for many years, I was the CEO and founder of what would become the world's largest live-action role-play company. So we did pretend play adventures for kids, for adults, and we did some pretty crazy stuff. Some of it at Polish castles, of course. And at some point, I met this Romanian gentleman by the name of... Hello, we are joined by audience member here. Can you wave to them? You can't see her, but she's there and she's real. So we'll now speak to her. Perfect. So I met a gentleman by the name of Paul Bulencha from Romania, who came out of tourism and had written a book on tourism and gamification. And we were doing a project together in Abu Dhabi. You do, right? And we were doing a project in Abu Dhabi, and on the flight back, we were thinking, how do we change the world? As you do when there's no in-flight entertainment. So we decided we're going to do a new sort of tourism conference. Because as Paul said, tourism conferences are sort of boring. They're nice, they're well-produced, but they're sort of boring. He said, what if we take some of the crazy ideas from the role-playing world of dressing up and imaginative worlds and strange ways of approaching experience and put that into a professional context? And then we said, what if we do a tourism conference that's very different? And we ended up saying, what if it wasn't just tourism, but experience design, the design of experiences, which was rather not super new at the time, but not well established. So we did the College of Extraordinary Experiences. And now here, 8 years later, it has its own life. It's still at a castle in Poland. It's still crazy.
Without Wi-Fi, you get the best ideas. On a plane, flying on 10,000 meters.
At least, I think I'll say, if you are forced to talk to other humans, you get better ideas.
I think it's also related with the fact I learned, I read somewhere that if kids should be bored sometimes, because then they start to play with,
Bingo.
you know.
Because if you're never
stuff.
bored, and a good friend of mine who for many years ran a gaming store, really good at it, one of the best customer service guys I've ever met. And I went in and helped him. And we had a meeting where we were supposed to develop some strategy. That was fun. And then we opened early because we were in the store anyway. We might as well serve some customers. He likes it, I like it, do a little bit of sales. And then after half an hour, he said, I realized that it's very hard to do strategy while you're selling to customers. So if you don't find that time, that boredom, that space, and that privacy, you never get to have those deeper discussions, right? IMEX here, it's beautiful. But just sitting down and having a 30-minute conversation like we were doing here, if it wasn't because you were doing it this way, it would never happen. Because every one of us would get up and we would have new people coming, oh, hi, oh, this, oh, picture, oh, that, oh, talk to you soon, oh, great to see you. Every like this, and then you don't have a conversation. We're sitting next to somebody on an airplane where they can't get away for 6 hours. You might hate it, but it will lead to conversation.
So what are the drivers that you find to find that time, to find that boredom, to find that creativity, to basically create what you do in a day?
So one of the ways I do it is I spend a lot of time every day learning. I spend at least an hour every day listening to podcasts or watching videos or reading articles. And an hour is not a long time, but it adds up over time. So I'm constantly getting inspired about new stuff. Then I talk with people. I talk with people about what I know. I will always drop things like I just saw a documentary on the reinvention of China, or I looked at something that talked about the real reasons why the French army broke during World War II so quickly, and how to kind of put that into perspective. And usually when you do that, people are curious. If I just come and say, Gorazd, I think we should talk more about leadership, you're going to go, oh. But if I say, you know what, I just saw a documentary about the Second World War, and I realized, which I didn't know, that I thought the Nazis had a great war machine. It turns out the German army was built during the 20s, and most of what made them so great was pre-Nazi and based on their loss in the First World War and based on limitations, then there's a good chance you'll go, okay, tell me more. Or you'll say, of course I know that. Of course I know Hans von Lecht already. And then I'll say, then we have a conversation. Where if we just say, Gorazd, let's talk leadership, you're like, I've got enough of that, right?
Here we come to storytelling. You are a great storyteller. I can feel you, actually. But why we kill the inner child, which is creative? They said, scientists, by the age of 6, that everybody is creative. And then we kill this inner child, and we become, I don't know, uncreative. Is that correct, or I'm completely wrong?
So look around.
Yeah.
Look around here. You're kind of nicely dressed, right?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks.
Jan is looks like a million.
More
yeah.
properly dressed, yes.
And only one of us looks like an idiot. But if you go out and ask 6-year-olds what they want to dress up as, how many are going to say Batman? How many are going to say, I want to dress up as a business guy in his 40s? Not very many. But when we go to an event like this, where at something like this, there's more than 10,000 people at IMEX. It's all about connection. It's all about meeting. It's all about being remembered, because if you're not remembered, then who knows what else. And what do? We dress the same. Our booths are the same. We all get these name tags that are nondescript and the same. Why not go a bit more crazy? And whenever somebody does, whether it's an idiot in a Batman suit or even somebody who just puts on 2-colored jacket and a little bit of a different look, then we're like, ooh, you're so brave. Kids do that all the time, but we knock it out of them. We are so afraid of standing out. We're so afraid of being the odd one. We're afraid in schools, we're afraid at jobs, we're afraid of stepping outside the norms. And luckily, we live in a time where it's becoming more possible to step outside the norms, whether it's sexuality or it's ways of organizing companies or it's doing your business, but that's still slow. And the older you get, the more you think like, yesterday was good. Let us have more of yesterday. And you see it at professional conferences, right? You see it at gatherings. We spend so much time wanting to stand out. And whenever somebody says, I've got an idea of how to stand out, we're like, no, let's not stand out.
So, artificial intelligence, is it possible to create experience with artificial intelligence, or will artificial intelligence take over what we humans can do in that manner, we are talking about? To play like children plays and so on and so on.
So I think anybody who will tell you they know what AI is going to do, they're lying. And that means I'll tell you. No, I don't know either. I don't know. But I do know some things that we can spot maybe a couple of months ahead or maybe a year, but over that it becomes a haze. But what I can see is that what AI does is it gives us the opportunity to get human-like interaction without humans. And one of the things, so if in the 80s, one of the things that became really popular were these books said, choose your own adventure. You start on page 1 and it says, you are standing in the boardroom. You have been hired to take over the oil company. What do you want to do? If you want to meet with the board of directors, go to page 16. If you want to fire your secretary, go to page 38.
I thought you were going to say dress up in a boring gray suit or in a Batman suit.
That's a given, right? That's on all the pages. Now, that was quite powerful. And mostly it was not about lawyers, but it was about pirates or medieval heroes or things like that. But that was quite powerful. Where today with AI, you could do that and the book keeps changing. So if I want to have a conversation, if I want to have ideas, if I want to have some sparring, I now have somebody who is super patient, a little bit weird, but knows a lot of stuff. My better half, who's a digital painter, says that using AI, she uses it to get sketches and ideas for her paintings and her art. And she says it's like working with the world's most patient, but sometimes drunk freelancer.
Yeah, it does hallucinate in funny ways.
And it sometimes gives you brilliance, and sometimes it's like, yeah, that's not where I was going. But then you just ask it again.
But I think that's also a part of what we do. I think every event is a game in its way, and sometimes we get it wrong, sometimes we get it right. Conferences can be great, or they can have an element for whatever reason that just doesn't work. What would be your event that you consider a great example of event design or creativity in this one?
Can you zoom in on the College of Extraordinary Experience? No. Apart from tooting my own horn, then what makes for, because I go to a lot of events, right? I go as a speaker, I go as a consultant, I go just as an attendee. What for me makes a great event is when the event is honest about what it wants to do and actually does that. If I go to Disneyland, Disneyland is amazingly well designed. And I'd learned some years back from one of the Disney Imagineers, a wonderful woman named Sarah Thatcher, said, nobody goes to Disneyland to make new friends. In fact, at Disney, they look at people who go to make new friends as that's a little bit shady, right? If you go as me alone to Disneyland and you want to make friends, they're going to have you on a little bit of a like, is this guy crazy? Maybe, maybe not, but let's just be aware, right? People don't go to Disneyland to make new friends. They go to strengthen connections they already have. They go with friends, they go with family, they go with business partners, but they go to strengthen connections they already have. And they do that immensely well. Where if Disney said, come to Disneyland, meet new people, that would be a complete failure. And I see so many events where they say, come do this, and they do something else, right? Here, IMEX, lovely place. Amazing people, amazing energy, long history. And if you ask people here, what's the most important thing at IMEX? They'll all say it's meeting people. And then I say, great, that stand up there, that sign that costs us 100,000 euro to produce, does that help me meeting people? Say, why don't we have a bigger name tag so it's less awkward to look and say, oh, I've forgotten your name for the third time, so I'll just avoid you now. Just give me bigger name tags and less production value if you want to meet people. Don't tell me where you're from, tell me what you're interested in.
I'm listening to you and thinking, why you Danes are so creative? Why is that so? Why Lego is from Denmark, Why the meeting design was born in actually Denmark? Can you explain this? Is this because of Hygge or what is behind?
So, and just to give context, I once put in some years back, and you can find it online, Singapore Airlines. And you're thinking, where is he going with this? Singapore Airlines has an in-flight magazine. And in that magazine, at one point, they were doing a special thing on Copenhagen because they were expanding routes to Copenhagen. And for non-obvious reasons, a sales guy ended up calling me and said, we have one full page left over at very, very low price. And do you want to take that? I said, yes. So I put in a full page of myself, my own face, my rockstar picture with sunglasses, and it said, do you want to know why Danes are so creative? Do you want to know why Lego blah, blah, blah is from Denmark? Call me and I'll help you. Nobody ever called, but some people saw it and I'm still waiting. But it was worth the test, right? Because I was playing on exactly what you're saying, that why is Denmark creative? And there are a couple of reasons I see. One is Denmark is small. We're 5.5 million people. We're not going to be able to compete with Bangladesh or Nigeria or the United States or let alone India or China. So if we want to compete, we need to compete on innovation and quality. Number one, we can't just throw people at the problem. Number two, we don't have natural resources. We're flat. We don't have iron or nickel or uranium, or we've got nothing, basically. So we can't compete on resources, so we need to do something else. We need to do innovation. Three, there's a huge level of trust in Danish society. Danish society is very trust-based, always ranks very near the top globally on trust and on equality. And if somebody comes to you as one of your employees and says, Gorazd, I've got an idea. And you say, why do you speak to me? I am your king and emperor. I am your boss and pay your bills. Be gone, slave. Then they're probably not going to say, okay, great, now hear the idea. Where there's so many cultures, and I've seen this in action, I've seen people treat their employees like that, they're never going to come up with ideas, right? And so trust and equality make for better ideas. And then the last part, which is a little bit less obvious, is Denmark has a pretty high standard of living. Denmark, we earn quite a bit of money, wages are high, working conditions are good. So the fact of paying somebody else is expensive, right? If I'm in India and I need one extra craftsman, I'm just going to hire one extra guy because the cost is minimal. If I'm in Denmark and need one extra guy just to fix my kitchen or take the order at the restaurant, it's going to cost a lot of money. So we'll do anything we can to avoid just solving it with more people because people are expensive.
So it is about if you don't have the budget, you got to be creative, right?
If you don't have the budget, you got to be creative. If you are open to ideas, there's a better chance of creativity. If you can't compete, don't fight. If you can't compete on size, don't say we're big. How often do you hear me, Jan, talking about my PhD?
Well, you know.
I don't have one, so I
go.
never mention it, right? If I had a PhD, I would talk about it all the time. But I don't have one, so I don't compete in who's most academic. My 45 books, I casually mention that every time I can get away with it.
45 books?
45.
Wow, that's an amazing number.
Ah, see, that's my PhD.
That's far more than 30, you know.
See?
45 is a great number.
And that means that there I can compete. So whenever I can mention that 45 books, non-discreetly or discreetly,
45 books.
then I do that because that puts me in here. That's my resource that I can talk about.
Now, you touched on something that I think we all kind of notice. There's a lot of changes in the industry. I mean, our lifestyles are changing. We mentioned AI that 4 years ago, if somebody said, you know, you can type in anything and it just pops out and fuck, you know. How do you see the zeitgeist of the industry? How do you see the meetings industry, the events industry, the whole, you know, society in this regard working, and where is it going?
Blinded. Blinded is my simple answer, and I'll explain what that means because I was wrong. I was completely and utterly wrong. I thought when we had the lockdown, when we had the pandemic, and everything went digital because we had to, right? I thought what would happen to live events like this is when we came back, they would be better. Because what would happen was everybody would look at, oh, now we can do digital, and do we really need that stakeholder meeting or that corporate retreat or that trade show? That if we could do it digitally, which is better for the planet and it's cheaper and it's simpler and you could do it in your underwear and all these sorts of things, it will make higher demands of live events. That was my thinking. And I was so wrong because what happened was when people came out of the pandemic, they did their events. They were also, a lot of them were also worried, will we have changed? And then they had the best event ever. So they went back and said, whew, we're great designers. We had the best event ever. But that wasn't the reason. The reason was because everybody was so happy to see each other again that no matter what you did in 2022, everybody loved it. Because just getting to see another human being, getting to say, oh, you're real, Jan, I haven't spoken to anyone in the flesh for 3 years, or whatever that looked like, then it was so good just seeing each other again that a lot of events were top rated there. And of course, when things get top ratings, we as humans, we think it's because of us, right? If somebody loves my speech because I remind them of their brother that they no longer see, but love dearly, I don't care about that. I think it's because I'm good. So the industry did not change and become better, but it got that boost of resurgence. And now we're back to where we were. And before COVID, and nothing's really changed. And the window is opening again because people are again getting back to, yeah, but couldn't we do it differently? And couldn't we that? So I think we're right now blinded, but we're starting to open our eyes again.
Do you notice that there is more events right now, that everybody's trying to kind of catch up?
Yes. Everybody's trying to catch up, and everybody's hearing stories of, oh, we didn't see each other for 2-3 years, and now we did it again, and it was so magical, and live events, and so wonderful, and yes, the planet suffers, but we need to meet, and all that sort of, and there's some truth to that. There's truth to needing to meet. But I think that right now we're in a very unique space and time where we're riding the high of getting out of COVID without realizing how much of it is our new ways of doing things, which there's some of, and how much is just that high of post, right? In 1946, I'm pretty sure that a lot of events were full of happy people because they just got out of 5, 6, 7 years of war, and just being able to see each other without worrying about destruction and death would have been amazing. I can't imagine how that was, except I can, because this is a little bit like that. And I think if you took a 1946 event and a 1950s event, the 1946 one would have everybody happy, and the 1950s, exactly the same, would have people much less happy without the event changing, just because of the outside circumstances changing. And right now, we're in 1947.
Okay.
Klaus, I watched Eurosong on Saturday. From technical point of view, it was amazing to me. but the content was a little bit, I would say, strange to me sometimes. So what can we learn from such big productions, such big events? How do you see it? Is there anything we can learn from Eurosong competition?
There's a huge thing we can learn, and that is that something like Eurovision is incredibly popular with some groups and very not popular with others. So if we go and say people who are our age don't care about Eurovision that much, let's learn from them. No, that's not going to work. But instead, one of the things that Eurovision has been, it's even become a little bit of a running joke, that if you want to win Eurovision, you need to capture the gay vote, right? That is because there's so many Eurovision fans who are queer. And that means that if your song relates to them, is relatable to them, if you're Conchita Wurst, right? It explodes because, of course, great song and great performance and great people, but also squarely won the queer vote. So if you want to have more queer people at your event, look at what's Eurovision doing.
But content is
Just
not,
as an example.
content is not so important anymore. Content is music, actually. The universal language we are speaking, actually, and listening, and we all understand. Where is music there? The basic ingredient, actually, of the competition.
Well, I think the basic ingredient is there, but it's who is it appealing to? And it's one of the things, the Eurovision, I think, if you want to look at that, it's actually pretty interesting from a design perspective, because if I ask you, Gorazd, what does a Eurovision hit sound like? You'll have an answer. Because it's lived for so long that it has its own life. There are some things that a Eurovision number does, and some things it doesn't. It's not...
Celine Dion.
For example, right? And whenever somebody comes and breaks that mold, they stand out for better or worse. But it means that whenever you have something that's lived long, it will have, there's a way of doing it in that way. Just like an IMEX booth has a life. A Ljubljana Talk has a way of being. And if somebody came and said, for my Ljubljana Talk, I want to do poetry slam, you're going to say, no, no, no. This is a Ljubljana Talk, not poetry slam. But maybe if you did that poetry, if you let that person do a 17-minute poetry
Claus.
slam instead, then suddenly you're going to say that was the best Ljubljana Talk ever because it broke all the rules.
Did you watch Jan Eurosong? He's a rocker, you know, by nature. Member of the band.
Aren't we
Very
all?
very well-known band in Slovenia. Jan, any comments?
Eurovision is, like you said, it's a genre.
It's a genre.
It's a genre. It's a thing that, you know, basically you could feed the brief into an AI and it will throw out the song. And that's the thing. It's been done so many times around. I think the shock element is really difficult to find. And it's very, you know, even I saw some of the bits. We were all rooting for Croatia, I think, this year, because I really like the song. You know, you take the traditional outfits and you mix them in Rammstein. That's kind of fun, you know. But it did lack that queer element, I think, because it is something that actually won at the end of the day. And I look at it actually from a political way, because there is a lot of social criticism that happens in Eurovision. I mean, if you take aside the music and the art, you know, what it all boils down to, there was a huge conflict between what is, you know, who is on the side of Gaza and Israel, and the conservative mainstream and the, you know, the queer options, the non-binary options, all that stuff. And, you know, I think, you know, before we used to look at it as a spectacle of kitsch in a way. But now I think what you see, it's probably the most high-tech event in Europe.
It is,
And it has the largest viewings there is. So it's become a mainstream thing now. Everybody's talking about it. If not everybody was talking about it, then Eurovision would have no function. But it is extremely, extremely important part of what I would say European mentality, as a kind of a social release in a way. I don't know. How would you agree with that?
I would agree with a lot of that. And I would also say that one of the things, I have a past in role playing, and one of the core concepts in role playing is alibi, excuse, saying, I want to play a vampire so I can walk around and do sneaky politics and sometimes have blood orgies on the 5th floor. and dance to weird techno music in goth clothes. But society doesn't give me that many options to do that. That's why I then pretend to be a vampire, right? And that means that if you can find out what do people want to do, what are they interested in, what are they longing for, and give them alibi. If you take a Eurovision, not even people who are there, but just people who are watching from home, there's an excuse to dress up. There's an excuse to pimp up your apartment or house. There's an excuse to do a viewing party. People don't sit alone at home watching Eurovision alone. They go and watch it together. It's a social occasion, and they dress up and they have fun and they do food. And here we're talking, most people, we're not even talking like the super queer segment we mentioned before. And I have friends in that who their watch parties are extreme, right? Because there's alibi, there's a reason. And if you just said it's Tuesday, let's dress up in sequins and spray glitter all over the place and dance to 80s music, somebody will say, yeah, but Jan, it's Tuesday. Where if you said, no, it's Eurovision. Oh, it's Eurovision. Now we can do it, right? We're all looking for alibi because alibi allows us to step outside the confines of what is permitted to go to what we want. And it doesn't matter whether you're going to a fetish party or you're going to a business conference or you're going sailing or you're at school or it's a bachelor party or it's a wine tasting. We go to places where we have alibi to do the things we want. Nobody ever said, it's Eurovision. I hate dressing up, so now I'm going to invite 10 people I don't like, and I'm going to dress up in a way I don't like and spend a lot of money on food. Nobody does that, right? Alibi doesn't force you to do things you don't want. The world does plenty of that already. Alibi gives us the chance to do things we want to.
I completely detour you guys, so I'm happy now. But life is full of, I would say, surprises, flops, tops, and so on and so on. I can write a book about it for sure. So, what can you say about it?
About you writing a book? Tell me when we start.
No. Actually, I have one for you here, but about flops and tops in our business careers.
So I've had plenty of flops and also some tops. And one of the nice things about failing is it teaches you things. We all know that. But what we don't talk enough about, in general, I feel, not us three, but in general, that how can we create failures that don't cost as much, but still provide learning, right? I crashed the role-playing company I mentioned. I crashed that. I spent 15 years building it. It was insane. We did really great stuff. And then I crashed it because I didn't know what I was doing. And that landed me 5 years ago in nearly €1 million of personal debt. And I'm now paying off of that. I'm about little over halfway done, so it's going the right way. But I'm still in that debt, and that was an insane learning experience. But I sometimes joke that I might have learned something from $500,000, right? I think €500,000 I would have learned, it would have been enough, right? I learned a lot from about one, but I think I would have learned some from half. And I think we all learn from strong experiences, whether it's somebody dying or somebody coming close to, or it crashes, or society changes, or COVID, or marriage, or kids. But I think that we're not always that good at creating spaces or opportunities to have these small experiments where there's a lot of learning to be had, but where the failure doesn't mean a lot, right? If I took this Batman suit and we swapped, and you walked around in it for 15 minutes, you would learn a lot, both about did you like it, do you not like it, how do people perceive you? But the failure, what's the worst that can happen, right? You're not going to get thrown out of IMEX. You're not going to lose your job. You're not going to get beaten up. That's me who does that. You're not going to, it's the actual failure risk is very low, but you might learn something. And we do too little of that low risk, high learning, where instead we focus on the high risk, ultra high learning. And I think if people in general get better at taking small risks, they'll learn a lot more, because we all learn from the extreme stuff, yes, but that's rarely pleasant because it has actual cost.
Well, Klaus,
Thank you.
They say that in Europe, if you fail, everybody looks down at you. And in the US, if you fail, it's just like, oh, you've learned something. So we might say that, every school costs something and the good ones are expensive. But we usually finish off with a couple of quick questions. So I guess that coming from the Eurovision talk, and because we all look a little bit like Conchita Wurst, and you're the only one dressed up into a Batman, I'm gonna ask you, so do you prefer rock or pop music?
Pop, surprisingly enough. I love rock music, but if I look at my playlist, there's more pop on it.
Mine is simple one, actually, beer or wine.
Is that a question?
Okay, of course. I love it.
Beer.
Okay.
I was told when I was younger that you needed to drink 10 bottles of wine to learn to appreciate it, and I only got to about 5 or so.
Okay.
Beer, I passed that some years ago.
Amazing. And what is your favorite word? What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Extraordinary.
Thanks, Jan. We'll finish the discussion today. And
Oh, this is so easy, It was an extraordinary discussion. It was an extraordinary Ljubljana Talks, and extraordinary thank you for taking your time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. And
Thank you out there.
See
Thank
you, everybody, soon. We'll be coming back live from Ljubljana, with Ljubljana Talks from Frankfurt, from IMEX 2024.